Republican Congresswoman Nancy Mace, who urged President Biden to skip his trip to Japan and focus on this debt deal. So who and what is holding up a deal?
Well, it's hard to say. I just got that news from you just now, but I will tell you this. If President Biden believes that we're on the brink of default, that it is so important to our national security, to our economy, to get this deal done, why did he run away out of our country and leave the negotiations at the table? We need a president who's going to come to the table, who will be there in person because he cares about our country and he cares about our countrymen. And we don't want to see default. That should not be on the table, but both sides have to come together now, immediately, to get this thing done in time before that June 1st deadline.
Well, he did cut part of his trip off to get back here for the debt negotiations, but it looked like they were going well, but then they got stuck. One of the issues that is a sticking point is the working requirements for welfare for able-bodied folks who could work, and we had a great success in the 96 workfare program, the welfare reform, which was agreed upon by a Democratic president and a Republican Congress. Joe Biden was one of the Senate leaders who was supporting it. Why is there so much hesitation among Democrats now to do something that they used to support?
Well, it's just partisan politics. This is an issue that's supported by the vast majority of Americans, whether you're a Republican or a Democrat. They want work requirements for those individuals. And now this is just, they've dug their heels in. This is a place where actually we could find agreement on debt ceiling talks. And yet they've dug their heels in on this. But this is a very bipartisan issue. We saw it in Wisconsin elections where 80% of residents there supported work requirements. And I think you see that kind of figure, those kind of numbers across the board, across the country.
I want to switch from economics to something that came up this week and it's been boiling for several weeks now, which is the Durham report and indications of what exactly went on. I know you're not a huge fan of Donald Trump. He tried to primary you at one point. But on the other hand, you look at the details of how they really went after him and the methods by which they did so, including tampering with evidence that they were presented before a FISA court and doing a lot of underhanded things. What do you feel about the implications of the Durham report and how that necessitates need for change at the FBI?
Well, Donald Trump did primary me last year, and I would argue I'm the only Republican in the House to beat him in a primary last year. And so no one can call me a shill for Donald Trump in this thing. But the FBI acted like political operatives. They used debunked information from political campaigns and used it to frame a president. And we all knew that there was no Russian collusion, but the FBI tried to tell America otherwise. It should never happen again, whether you love or hate Donald Trump. This is not what we should be doing to an American president or anybody in this country, quite frankly.
Let's move to international affairs and the dangers and threats from overseas. Henry Kissinger, who's about to turn 100 years of age, by the way, even though he's a lot livelier intellectually than a lot of 80-year-olds, but he said, and I'm quoting him now, "We're in the classic pre-World War situation where neither side has much margin of political concession and in which any disturbance of the equilibrium can lead to catastrophic consequences." That's pretty serious stuff. Is the administration doing enough to counter the threat from communist China?
I don't believe so, and I believe we need to be very careful and tread water here. 80% of the way that we deal with communist China should be non-kinetic, should not be military, and we're so dependent upon China. Whether we're talking about pharmaceuticals, we're still dependent on China by about 80% of our pharmaceuticals. Our supply chain is dependent on China, natural resources, critical rare earth minerals. We need to start moving away and manufacture back at home in Mexico, Central and South America, move our supply chain closer to home so we're less dependent, less reliant on China, and start showing some leadership there and teach them a lesson or two about this, about if they move forward on this, what that might look like from a business and economic perspective.
Congresswoman Nancy Mace, great to see you, Congresswoman. Thanks for being here.
Thank you so much.
Appreciate it. Well, it may not be that easy being green. Coming up, why the top toy